नमः शक्ति शिवाय।
Bom dia. Boa tarde
Buen
a
día,
toda.
Peter.
Good to see you. Just a second, you seem to be on my headphones. Let me just switch that off because I wasn't hearing anything yet. There we go. Okay, should be able to hear you now. Yeah. All right. Anything you'd like to share to begin with? Anything that feels important to cover today?
Well, you gave me some homework, so
Yeah.
yeah, I only practiced this morning. Should I share this now, or you want to
Yeah,
integrate?
sure. We can do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So the rebirthing connected breath, it feels more natural and effortless to me.
Uh-huh.
And I almost see a circle going between the root and the roof of my mouth when I do it.
Great.
Yeah. And it connects me immediately with the field also. Then the Kundalini Pranayama, it feels much more masculine because it's a technique and I have to really force. If I don't practice it regularly, I really have to force and teach my system to do this. Yeah, feels more focused. But in the connected breath, my mind gets very fast empty. And in the Kundalini Pranayama, I need to really use my mind to keep this doing.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Interesting. Yeah.
And I haven't done it recently long enough to actually feel like an outcome also of the, but it feels like I noticed it also already when I did other stuff with theta healing, also learning energy work, that I have a very intuitive approach to meditation and connection. And whenever like a masculine way comes with like to follow certain steps and a way, then I'm struggling more. It's more effort for me.
Yeah. Okay.
I can just, what I mean is like in a meditation, you can go from A to B, and I can just go from A and then I'm at B in another state. I can just do this. While others, they need the steps, you have to go through all the 7 planes of existence and this and imagine this. For me, it's very distracting.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but I I remember that I practiced the pranayama kundalini longer and more regularly before, and then it also becomes after a while more natural. Like I'm more following it than making it happen. But it requires in the beginning more discipline and more focus and more mental focus. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
that's what it feels like to me. Is that common or?
It makes sense. And in relation to whether it's common or not to be able to go straight to the result without the technical steps, I think that comes from having experience. And when you have experience, your intuition you can call it intuition, or even, let's say, you have access to the naturalness of the process. And I think there's a bit of a delay here in the Zoom, so I'm just going to close a few things. The more experience you have, the easier it is for there to be a spontaneity to it instead of a requirement for it to become technical. And so it makes sense. And you said that when you do have frequent practice of the Kundalini Pranayama, you can feel the benefits. When you haven't been doing it for a while, it feels more forced and not even very evident benefit. Comparing it when it does feel like it's beneficial with this more simple connected breathing, is it possible for you to evaluate which feels more enriching, more deep, more potent?
No, I will have to practice more again to say that.
Okay.
I only remember that I was very relaxed the last time I practiced it, more days in a row. Yeah. So,
Okay.
but
You
in a way, it feels like, I don't know if that's the right description. It's often hard to describe the sensations, but when it comes to consciousness, but the Kundalini Pranayama connects me more with the absolute somehow. Yeah. It whereas the rebirthing keeps me more in the body
yeah,
somehow.
that makes sense because the Kundalini Pranayama is going all the way to the crown and holding the breath at the crown, so it's pulling you more into a transcendent connection, whereas the circular breathing is holding you in an embodied restfulness rather than a transcendent connectedness. So we can do a practice today where we do just 7 breaths of each. And maybe we'll find that if you do the connected breathing first, which is more intuitive, more relaxing in a way, perhaps, it might also make the Kundalini Pranayama more natural, less forced. Let's see, and you can give me feedback after. So we'll do 7 breaths of each. Okay, so it's
Starting with the rebirthing or the pranayama?
say again. Sorry.
Starting with the rebirthing or
I
the
suggest starting with the rebirthing,
okay.
and actually 7 breaths is perhaps too short for the connected breathing. So let's call it a 3-minute practice. 3-minute practice. I'll time it, and then we'll do about 3 minutes of Kundalini Pranayama as well.
Okay. So you let me know when the 3 minutes.
Yeah. And just to let you know, I have to keep my phone on, unfortunately, because I've got an electrician coming to fix something, so I need to keep an eye on his call. So apologies for that.
Oh, he's in the lunch break now, having
Yeah, I don't think he's going to call now, but just in case.
having a glass of wine and almost.
It's quite possible.
No, maybe not.
Okay. Okay, that's 3 minutes. And we can, unless there's anything you want to share, we can go straight to the Kundalini Pranayama practice.
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
There's more. There's more bliss after the pranayama. It's true. The rebirthing, the connected breath, they lead more to almost instant relaxation. It's more physical. Whereas now I feel the more bliss.
Beautiful.
It wasn't so easy for me to. You have to really practice it regularly.
It wasn't so easy to do the Kundalini Pranayama after.
Yeah, to do it correctly. I mean, like when you didn't do yoga for 2 weeks and
Yeah. So one thing I noticed with this is that this combination can help us to get the bhava, the feeling with which you practice. You could say the attitude, the posture, in a not physical sense, but in the sense of the way your whole being is poised in the practice. When you do the graceful practice first, the more intuitive, the more easy, fluid, and maybe even pleasurable practice first, which feels more natural. Once you can kind of settle into that conscious breathing in a way that feels relaxing, then you can add this slightly more technical or directive element to it without losing the gentleness or the relaxation so much. And so the Kundalini Pranayama can take on a less forced, natural flow to it, because you've kind of entered into that bhava, that feeling state first. This is really nice that we've done this little exploration, because this is one of the great challenges, is to find exactly this balance between technique and surrender in the moment to grace. And we tend to have a difficulty, I think, in managing both things. We can practice a general sense of letting go in life and trusting, an opening to grace. But the moment we bring in a technique, we will tend to enter into struggle, forcefulness, expectation, evaluation. Am I getting this technically right? And so to activate that receptive quality, and then bring in, while we have that quality of presence, bring in a technique, we can avoid going into the excessive, like you called it, masculine approach to it. So this is an interesting way to do that, because it's one thing to say that we need to balance those things, but this seems to be a way that it gets us there quite naturally. And I would say that although this connected breathing, it is the rebirthing breath work, it's not the way most people practice rebirthing. And I think I mentioned this, that I felt that like I'd kind of rediscovered the essence of rebirthing. And before I realized that that's what I had done, I thought I'd invented something new or discovered something new and was going to call it GraceFlow breathwork. And then I went back to reading Leonard Orr's original teachings about rebirthing and saw that that's exactly how he had described it. But it's not what's taught in the facilitated trainings.
It's interesting, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Like
so,
he adjusted to his clients, maybe.
yeah, I didn't really get an explanation from him on that, but I did hear, I mentioned this as well, that one of the facilitators that he works mostly or worked mostly with, at least in Europe, she said that she would intentionally intensify the breathing to get a kind of a quick, evident result. And it was, she didn't say this exactly, but it felt like it was a way to kind of deal with her insecurities as a therapist, partly. Because to be doing very, very, very subtle work, it's going to bring up a little bit of anxiety as a facilitator. Like, are they going to realize that there's any value to this? Because they're just breathing. They're just doing something they do every day. Are they going to value the fact that they're paying me to accompany this process? And so by tweaking it so that it actually is not feeling like ordinary breath or anything like it, because it's so intense, it becomes classified in the person who's receiving the therapy. It gets naturally classified in their mind as different to just breathing, and it also brings about often a cathartic and physiological sensations, all sorts of things that make it a kind of a quick result. It's not necessarily a better result, but it's a quick, evident result rather than a subtle process that's going at working at a deep level. Okay. Any other reflections or feedback or questions?
Yeah, I have a question to something else
Yeah.
concerning Shiva and Shakti. Because Shiva is the passive principle and Shakti the active. But at the same time, Shiva and Shakti are often used to represent the masculine and feminine, and there it is the other way around. Can we please talk about this?
Yeah. It's interesting because that came up in my mind yesterday.
It's very fun. After a long time, I took my notes and I opened the same, like at the first opening, I had this in my hand and I was like, Shiva passive, Shakti active.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things to say about that. One is that all the religious, spiritual, if you like, models of reality, whether they speak of a singular reality, the one, or whether they're speaking of a complementary polarity of Shiva and Shakti, yin, yang, mother, father aspects of the divine, or whether it's referred to as a trinity of forces, trinity of beings. The model can vary, but it's always a model of oneness. Whether it's literally one or two that make one or three that make one, it's a model of the totality. So the Shiva and Shakti model, in which Shiva is the transcendent, unmanifest, Shakti is the power that manifests. So yeah, passive, active, unmanifest, and manifest. You could say also the potential and the actualization or the manifestation. It's a model of complementary components of reality. in the yin and yang model, it's a different thing that's being modeled. It's not, yin and yang doesn't refer to the transcendent and the manifest in the way that Shiva and Shakti refer to the transcendent and the manifest. In the yin-yang model, in which yang, the masculine, is active and yin is passive or receptive, those forces are manifest forces, both of them. And so in the case of the yin-yang model, they're actually, the symbol of yin-yang as a totality is called Tai Chi, the symbol itself as a whole.
I didn't know that. Okay,
That's the Taoist name for it. And Tai Chi in this case means the supreme ultimate.
I even wrote it down here. I should read my note. Yeah.
And so the totality in the Taoist tradition, the unmanifest is the supreme ultimate. And then in manifestation, forces take on this polar complementary nature of yin and yang. So yang is not equivalent to Shiva, nor is it an exact reversal of Shiva and Shakti, because Shiva is actually equivalent to the supreme ultimate, really, if you're going to try to create a kind of an equivalence of terminology. Shiva is the Tai Chi, the unmanifest, like Brahman. And within the realm of Shakti, you have, for example, in the manifest, you have Ida and Pingala, solar and lunar. That would be yin and yang.
So Shiva and Shakti are both masculine and feminine. Because they have it.
It's a different way to use the gender symbolism. The idea of gender symbolism is complementarity. Again, like I said, it's the two that make the whole, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're talking about, let's say, the macrocosmic reality, then you acknowledge the transcendent and the manifest, if you're looking at like the big picture. And when you're looking at the big picture, you can attribute the power, the Shakti, as being a manifestation. It's the dynamics of existence, all of the dynamics of existence. And the subtle, in a way, even the changeless, like the center of a wheel, the unchanging is Shiva. But if you bring your attention just to the manifest, to the experiential realm, to the dynamics, within the dynamics, there is the polarity also. There's a polarity within the dynamics that we can think of as a complementary binary, a complementary polarity of, again, we can use masculine, feminine as a model, because it's so natural for us to do that, as humans, to kind of draw that as our symbolism, masculine, feminine, solar, lunar, to represent that, hot and cold to represent that. And so Ida and Pingala are more like yin and yang than Shiva and Shakti are like yin and yang. They're in the realm of manifest forces or dynamic forces.
So, yeah, but it means like the yin yang contains both the dynamic and the absolute, no?
Yin and yang are not...
It's like looking at it in a different way somehow. or
It is. It is. It's a different. It's a different way to model things. So, but just to be clear, when you said yin and yang, if we're talking about the forces of yin and the force of yin and the force of yang, both of those are within the realm of dynamics.
yes,
Even yin, which is passive, is a complement to the yang in the sense that it is a force as well. It's like one is drawing in while the other is pushing out. But even the drawing in is a force. It is a dynamic. The
it's more,
receptivity has a quality to it,
yeah. So
whereas Shiva is without qualities.
yeah, the quality of yin by itself and yang by itself, if you can say that, is dynamic.
Yeah.
And together, it's absolute.
Well, you could think of it as a kind of a cosmological framework, and so if we think of it in terms of let's say before and after existence, the cosmos coming into being, the supreme ultimate is before manifestation, before the differentiation of yin and yang, before they actually express. There is the supreme ultimate. And then comes manifestation and they express. So they're like, it's like the idea of let's say, in between manifestations of the cosmos itself, you just have the stillness of Brahman. You could say Shakti is completely at rest in Shiva. There's no manifestation of Shakti in between cosmic emanations. And then when what we would call the Big Bang happens, when manifestation arises, Shakti stirs, comes into expression. But before that, it's as if she doesn't exist. She is in pure potentiality within Shiva, but it can become too clumsy, let's say, to use the words when speaking of absolutes. And so, there's that symbol, Ardhanishvara, which is Shiva and Shakti as one, the left side being Shakti and the right side being Shiva. A single form, a single...
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's to remind us that they're not really separate fundamentals. They're different expressions of a singular reality. Two sides of a coin, you could say. And there's also within the Jewish tradition, the Kabbalistic tradition, the idea of the Ein Sof, which is similar to the idea of the supreme ultimate, or the kind of the before the manifestation, or is it Ein Sof Od? But there's the kind of primordial light comes into manifestation. So there's the idea of again, this kind of undifferentiated absolute before manifestation comes into play. This can get confusing when in tantric, like in modern tantra, right? When people are speaking of the men being the Shiva and the woman being the Shakti, they're not really equivalent concepts to yin and yang, and it gets a little confusing. What does that mean? That the women are Shakti and the men are Shiva? What does that even mean, right? In the ritual context of coming together and experiencing the magnetic energy, the sexual energy, the arousal, the life forces aroused and held in a space of, let's say, expansion, you can bring together all the forces in existence again. So in this combining of these two people that feel some energetic attraction, energetic arousal, you can bring about a sense of the wholeness with all the energies being activated and expanded and expanded and activated, but also in a way that is, let's say, there's a component of relaxing into that expansion. Because it's not all about the excitement. It's not about the sensations. It's the combination of that active quality of arousal that brings expansion, creating a space for the sense of wholeness. And so in that sense, you could say this is the play of Shiva and Shakti, not because the woman is the only one holding a dynamic energy and the man is the only one holding the quietness associated with Shiva, the silence of Shiva. It's not really that equivalence. They're both doing a dynamic, energetic interplay. But because we have the language Shiva and Shakti as the complementary pairs, it's the words are being used in a different way. They're being used more like the idea of yin and yang in this case than the usual meaning attributed to Shiva and Shakti. So this is important to review because students that might come to us will be trying to get like straight answers, like, well, which is it? Which is it? And why? And the fact is that in different contexts, the symbols can mean different things. They serve a different purpose in different contexts.
Yes, it's a bit confusing.
Yeah, it is.
Like the mind likes to analyze it.
Exactly. And that's why I began by saying all the symbols are ways, or all the symbols are ways to represent the wholeness. That's their fundamental function. And that doesn't change. That's the one thing that doesn't change. The purpose of the symbols is to represent the wholeness. How they do that can change, but that's what they're doing. I call this the mandala principle, because a mandala is a representation of the elements that constitute the whole. What elements you choose in your mandala changes from one culture to another. Like yin and yang in one culture, Shiva and Shakti in another culture and another context, Ida and Pingala in another context. But the same principle is always at play. You're mapping wholeness. And for different contexts, you use different elements. And confusingly, sometimes the elements have the same name, but a different function.
I think I have to rewatch this recording from today.
Okay. Yeah. And if any questions come up when you do that, let me know.
But you can say like the yin and yang in the wholeness, they are Tai Chi.
Yeah.
The supreme unmanifested absolute.
Yeah.
It's in a way, can you say it's in a way like the meaning of Shiva?
Yeah. Yeah.
Shiva Shakti.
Say that again. Shiva, what? I missed the last part.
Like the supreme, the absolute of yin and yang in a wholeness. Can you say this is Shiva?
In some sense, yes.
Or is that actually Shiva Shakti?
In some sense, yes.
In some sense, yes. In some sense, no.
Yeah, but, and again, it would be nice to be able to say, give an absolute, like a defined answer that differentiates there. But in different contexts, the teachings will say slightly different things. So, for example,
depending if it's non-dual or dual.
Partly that, but it's not only that, because what also happens is, for example, in some in a more Advaita context, not necessarily tantric, the tendency will to refer to the absolute as Brahman. Not even Shiva, Brahman. In some non-dual contexts, it'll be Shiva. And in some it'll be Brahman. Brahman being neuter, not masculine. But in a Shakta tradition, where there isn't an emphasis on Shiva, then the absolute is referred to, for example, as Mahashakti or Parashakti, like the supreme Shakti, which in this case means as yet unmanifest. So it's differentiating from the manifest Shakti. So rather than giving a masculine name, Shiva, or even Brahman, they refer to it as Parashakti. So depending on the culture, even within India, within the tantric traditions, they'll have different way of modeling this. The common thing, you could say, the common structure that you see is that there is an absolute, an unmanifest that is absolute, and then the manifest. The names they give to each changes, but that pretty much remains present throughout in the Vaishnava tradition as well, which tends to be more dualistic, more bhakti oriented, but they still have the idea of the unmanifest absolute and then the manifest. But they'll say that they're different aspects of Vishnu. Mahavishnu, and then Vishnu is a more personal divine being that incarnates.
Okay. And when does Shiva become masculine? Like, in which context? If Shiva is the unmanifested, the absolute, then when does it become masculine?
So
because one is passive and the other is active, so it's very contradictory.
Yeah.
Somehow.
One way, well, there's an extra question I would bring into this, which is, do you believe Shiva to be like an avatar, an incarnate yogi, or just a symbol, like an archetype around which stories are developed? You know, an archetypal figure which we use myths to encapsulate the teachings. So if you think of it as mythology, as stories that help us come into contact with the principles, the teachings, then in the stories, Shiva is masculine. Shiva is a man, a yogi. In the stories, he is the incarnation of a divine principle. But he's incarnate as in a masculine body. So in the stories, he's masculine. When we speak of Shiva as consciousness, that's not in the mythological context. So maybe this is helpful to think of two different contexts, cosmological and mythological. In the cosmological context, it's in a way simplified. You've got Shiva to represent the absolute, the unmanifest, and Shakti to represent the dynamics, the manifestation, the potency that gives rise to everything. So that's the cosmological model. In the mythological model, you've got countless stories of Shiva as a yogi, also as Shiva as a deity interacting with Brahma and Vishnu, sometimes kind of competing for who's the supreme among, or who's the greatest among the three, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. And in some cases, the function of those stories is a kind of a subtle rivalry between the Vaishnavites and the Shaivites. So the Shaivites will tell stories of how in these competitions between Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, Shiva always turns out to be the supreme, the most powerful, in some sense, the ultimate. And Brahma and Vishnu are lesser consequence. They're, in fact, in some ways, subcomponents of Shiva, because Shiva is the absolute. And in Vaishnavite stories, you get the opposite. Vishnu is the absolute. Shiva is the greatest devotee, but he's a devotee of Vishnu, which is the absolute. So in cultural contexts, these myths are playing a slightly different function. So you could even say there's the cosmological context, the mythological context, and maybe as a subcategory of the mythological context, there's the cultural, sectarian context. So the sectarian context will have variations of the powers attributed to Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, and Shakti also. You could say that maybe this could be mapped out, but I suspect it would be a map that just grows and grows and grows rather than being simple. But there's the cosmological and the mythological. Then within mythological, you have the sectarian, and maybe the yogic mythology, in which the purpose of the myths is really to elaborate the yogic teachings within the story, to give you insight through storytelling, through myth. And sometimes those insights are about your practices, giving you insight into the nature of the practices, into the philosophy. And that can be done in a way that the focus is really on the, let's say, your integration of the techniques. And then some of the more sectarian mythology is not so much directly about your practice. It's about you having faith in your tradition by kind of reasserting the primacy of your tradition.
It's the way with all spiritual schools and religions. Why is that so complex? Can I not just, different languages and stuff, of course, no? But yeah. I have a friend. He is a TCM, Chinese medicine practitioner, and he calls himself today a chakra therapist. He wrote a book about the connection of TCM and the chakra, and the more Ayurvedic, the chakra system.
Interesting.
And I made him translating it into English. I don't know if it's ready yet because he wrote it in Dutch. And he said in the TCM world, they were so rejecting this combination.
Yeah.
That you can't do this. But he assisted me in quite a few retreats. And it's very interesting, the knowledge and the combination of when you practice it.
Yeah. Interesting.
I'm waiting for his book to read.
Yeah, I'm curious about it as well.
Yeah. Okay. But you wanted to say something before I said the story. Why is it also?
I think I was just going to say that, what was it? I thought maybe you were commenting about the how this happens in all traditions. I thought maybe you were commenting specifically about the sectarian kind of competitiveness in a sense. And even though it seems kind of childish, there is also a psychological reason for it, which is if you're going to be doubting, oh, maybe that tradition over there is better than this one, and why is there a contradiction? And if you get lost in the maybe this, maybe that, you never get dedicated to any path. You just start
Yeah.
jumping around. And so, as a way to just help keep you focused, because it's one thing for each path to have its validity and its potency, for that to be true, that each path has its validity and its potency. It's another thing for you to be always thinking, well, if my path's the same as that one, then in effect, then maybe that one's a little easier or a little bit more fun or a little bit more something or other. So having something that just kind of holds you in place, like just stay focused. And if the way to do that is to kind of have this mythology that tells you how this is the supreme path, as long as it doesn't lead to actual like violent misunderstandings between traditions, if they can get on with what they're doing peacefully, then it could actually be considered to be psychologically helpful.
Okay.
It's addressing, let's say, primitive needs in us so that we can focus.
Yeah, and because we don't have the right level of consciousness yet to grab the totality of our nature, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I had another. Give me 1 second. I need to go to the
Sure.
bathroom. Interesting when we sit on the toilet, how sometimes we get ideas and we
Yeah.
remember what we wanted to say.
Yeah. Or in the shower, I
I
think
don't
that
know
often
why that is.
happens. What
Because
did
we
you
make
remember?
face maybe, or I don't know. I sit on the toilet and yeah. Yeah, I have another question um, about the heart. And I'm curious if it's a little bit different topic. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So, a tantric friend of mine in Berlin, he wrote an article about the space inside the physical heart, the third.
Ventricle.
I, you have these spaces inside the heart, and we learned there are two, but he said there's a third room. Let's say, call it room.
Yeah. I think the word is ventricle in England, in English.
Okay. Yeah. And
Chamber.
I didn't know about it. It's very interesting that we don't learn this in anatomy for some reason. And I'm wondering if it's connected to that place that I call the center of the heart that feels for me uh, connected to the soul, to the source, the the space inside the heart, and that's energetically somehow unchanging.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense at an intuitive level. There is remember there is this model of the Kundalini process that involves the rising of Kundalini to the crown. And in the let's say for the ascetic or transcendent oriented yogis, their goal is to reach the crown and then have perfect transcendence, Mahasamadhi. They're happy to leave the body with perfect detachment. The tantric yogi goes through the same yogic process of raising the Kundalini, but then weaves consciousness up, down with the breath, what the Taoists would call bridging heaven and earth. Even you could say the marriage of heaven and earth. And it's the marriage of Shakti and Shiva. Shakti is all this dynamic energy processes. Shiva is that absolute stillness associated with the crown, the unmanifest. And so the dynamic energy reaches the place of restfulness, from its restlessness to restfulness, but then comes back into, you could call it back into manifestation with the quality of awakenness. So in some sense, the energy, the manifest is associated with some degree of individuality, Maya Shakti. There is a sense of veiling of the ultimate nature. And when it reaches Shiva, this point in this quality of stillness of the crown, then it regains its awareness of its true nature, let's say. And then the energy flow through the body is permeated with jnana, knowledge of the true nature of self, of reality, a sense of wholeness and contentment that is embodied. And so within this model of the more tantric model, you could say the consciousness can be seen to, after Kundalini is fully awakened, to settle in the heart. In some cases, this is referred to as this, not the actual organ of the heart, though, as a chakra that is distinct from the heart chakra, the Hrid or Hridaya chakra in the right side. So there are variations, let's say, on the specifics of the anatomy relating to this idea. But I saw a video just a day or two ago that I'll share with you. Maybe I can share it right now. That is about the physical organ of the heart. The heart tissue can unfold as a single strip of muscle, let's say, but when it comes back onto itself, when it folds like a vortex, like a spiral around itself. It's an interesting discovery. I don't know if this is a new discovery or just it doesn't tend to be talked about because it wasn't considered to be particularly meaningful, but it was interesting to see this. Just trying to remember if I have it where I have this. We can come back to the Kriya Sutras of Babaji in the next class. Oh, and that reminds me. And again, apologies for the changes in timing that we've had this week. Would it be possible to have another change in timing? And would you have any time in the next couple of days for us to do the class that would normally be on Friday?
This week or next week?
This week. Would you have any time for us to move Friday's class to tomorrow or Thursday?
Yes, I do.
Or Friday,
Thursday.
or earlier on Friday if that's better for you, but like 10 to 11, for example.
No, then I prefer on Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah. At 12 or 12:30?
12?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on holiday, so I don't have many things this week.
Okay. Okay. Great. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And so let me know. There was you're going to review some of some of this class and then see if any questions come up.
But yeah, I think it's clear now.
Okay.
Somehow with Shiva, Shakti, Yin Yang, and so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't realize it's already 1 hour. Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just putting it in my calendar for Thursday so I make sure I remember because it's a change.
If 12:30 is better for you, that's fine.
No, 12 is good. Do you have a preference? It can be 12:30 if you prefer.
No, it's okay. 12 is okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I feel like just as a last sharing that I did a meditation in the last retreat where I brought people to that heart space where that is unconditional, unchanging. And it's probably, it feels like the same energy than the absolute somehow. Just more loving, not so neutral. And I feel like that people that are not, that just start with Tantra and spirituality and all this um, diving into consciousness, it's an easier access somehow. And to access that part of themselves that is infinite, you know? I've never had a meditation before where like half the group started crying and going in so deep processes. I often channel meditations, they just come to me. And it was, yeah, it was kind of, it took a lot of time that wasn't planned in, but it was meant to be like a 20-minute meditation. But it was, in the end, it was like 1 hour or 90 minutes or so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
It, w-
it's really, yeah, it's like going to Shiva through the heart also. If that's, is that maybe the is that Chief Shakti maybe?
I think that's a good way to express it because at the heart, we can think of it as a place of, let's say, relative stillness. Like we feel at home, feel
Yes.
connection, but it's not the unmanifest. It is a place of balance. It's a place where we feel wholeness, but not the transcendent wholeness that is completely unmanifest with no sense of identity, no qualities, even no attributes.
Mm.
The heart is like the embodied peace, the embodied presence. So it's yeah, I like that idea of Shiva Shakti as a good way to describe it. Makes sense.
Okay. Because yeah, sometimes I do things because they come to me and then I need to understand what actually just happened afterwards. Yeah. It's a
Yeah,
very interesting process. Learning through experience, isn't it?
yeah, it's super important.
Yes.
Beautiful. Okay, so I'll see you on Thursday. Thank you, Paula. Big hug
Thank
to
you.
you.
Ciao, ciao, Ate.
Ciao.
What's that? Anyway,
Kinder.
Quinta. Yeah. No, because in German, Monday is day one. So I always have to
Ah, yeah.
recalculate the numbers in my head because Friday for me is not the sixth day, but the fifth day. So
Okay. That must create confusion. Yeah.
it does.
All right.
Ciao, Peter.
Big hug. Thank you.
Okay.